Today we look at Raphael's fresco, The Triumph of Galatea, in the Villa Farnesina in Rome. The composition turns like a carousel, counterclockwise, both on the surface and in the depth. The figures' volumes, clearly conceived as boxes, are disposed in rhythmically alternating in and out, left and right, axial tilts, in accord with the various gestures. The Puto in the foreground rounds out the circumference of the carousel. His figure comes toward us from the left and then recedes to the right, like a bay window or the apron of a stage. Every movement of every form is balanced by an opposing movement. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. The picture inhales and exhales, systole and diastole keep the circulation going. Look at the figure of Galatea, the active central pole who turns the carousel by her contrapposto twist. As the axis of her chest and shoulders twists away from us, her arms connect to the most distant figures, while her left thigh and knee come forward to balance her. Her wind-blown red drapery amplifies her twist by pulling back to the left, while being balanced by Galatea's right arm, which forms with it a continuous vector in the picture plane. This drapery is cangiante, that is to say, it changes hue in the lights and shadows. The ovoid blue light on the thigh is necessary as a counterforce to the leftward pull of the red triangle. The red figure of the merman, responding to Galatea's red robe, tilts forward, forming with the red robe an enclosure containing the pale nymph, who leans back toward Galatea, her billowing yellow shawl completing one side of the enclosure. Note the wonderful negative shapes created. The nymph's left arm, contiguous with Galatea's robe, is echoed by the light blue oval, which in turn forms a bridge to the blue sea. This opens up the red enclosure at this point and allows us to feel another, more subtly delineated, but ultimately more powerful closure or bracket in the reins and Galatea's left arm and hand, and the hands, baton, and forearm pertaining to the background centaur. Three putti in the sky form a triangle whose apex tilts to the right in response to the axis of Galatea's ribcage. At the same time, the near base of this triangle swings forward and the left base swings back, clockwise in opposition to the movement below, and leading to a fourth puto who peeks from behind a cloud. The triangle changes into a parallelogram, whose left side lines up with the reins on the picture plane, establishing a long diagonal vector stretching from lower right to upper left on the picture plane and from near to far in the depicted space. This is the major tension line for the whole painting, against which the main action can swing. The tension is maintained by the upward movement of the centaur's arm and hand, and the downward movement of Galatea's hands. The centaur's hand stops at the boundary of a cloud, which lines up horizontally with the red triangle, but also becomes part of a large parallelogram, the enclosure we talked about earlier. This lends the left hand of the muscular foreground puto extra force as he tugs the vector of the reins. This long vector is actually bent slightly as Galatea interacts with it, pressing against it, and turning and tilting her head to conform with it in the paroxysmic climax of the painting. The governing lines of a masterpiece, you see, are dynamic kinesthetic forces.